Afternoon, everybody. Today is Thursday, November 4th, and I'd like to welcome you to this week's installment of C-Suite Snacks. I'm Steve Ronan, the leader of Citrin Cooperman's consulting and outsourcing practices, and the host of this webinar series. Well, folks, in case you hadn't noticed, it's fall. When I woke up in the great state of Connecticut this morning, it was 31 degrees and a light frost covered my yard. With fall comes not only some of the great joys of American life, like apple cider, flannel, and vests and pumpkin pie, but also some less fun things like flu season and open enrollment. As we heard from David Lewis in our last session, the war for talent is more competitive than ever, and employees need to use every tool at their disposal to win. One of those tools that's increasingly important in both talent retention and attraction is your benefits package. Concurrently, as you all well know, the costs of these benefits have been increasing at feverish rates. So how do you balance offering great benefits that your people are happy with and compare well to your competition with containing costs over the long term? It's a difficult question that many of you are grappling with right now. Today, we're joined by Shaun Gagnon. He's the managing partner of Cambridge Insurance Advisors, a boutique benefits consulting and advisory firm. Shaun and his team work with companies who need to stay at the forefront of benefits trends, including fast-growing companies, family-run enterprises in transition, and private equity portfolios. Today, Shaun will talk about the data that shows how employee expectations are changing in this space, what you can do about it, and how to develop a long-term plan to make your benefits more stable and more cost-effective. As always, we ask you to submit questions throughout the webinar, so please use the Zoom Q&A button at the bottom of your screen to enter questions as we go. We'll save time at the end to address what we receive. We'll also be doing our weekly snack basket giveaway, where one lucky attendee from today's session will win a craft basket of snacks, and we will announce the winner at the end of today's webinar. Finally, if you're here because you found it on our website, on social media, or somebody forwarded it to you, I encourage you to sign up for our mailing list and make sure you receive an invite for our new snack-sized topics. Please also visit our C-Suite Snacks Content Hub on our website to view recordings of prior sessions and get access to the decks and contact information of the presenters. Without further ado, Shaun, thanks for joining us today. And I'll turn it over to you to begin our session on benefits.
Awesome, Steve. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it as always. And fun topic to chat about this morning. A lot of stuff to cover, so we'll move through some slides quickly. Obviously, open it up for questions throughout. But Steve hit it directly. The talent war and the benefit strategy go hand in hand right now in terms of everyone this time of year, probably either in an open enrollment or going into that phase. We'll point out some things this year, just extending that over a yearly process and whatnot. But quick background on myself, one of two owners of Cambridge Insurance Advisors, currently carry the title, obviously, of managing partner. And you see my contact information there. I encourage anyone to connect me on LinkedIn. Love sharing best practice and chatting with folks. I'll have you maybe move on to the next slide. We'll chat about the agenda a little bit today, but wanted to speak, kind of full circle on the open enrollment, employee engagement, meeting current human capital needs. As we'll see, different age demographics require different things or think about the work space differently today than maybe they did 5 or 10 years ago. What's trending in cost containment and benefits, and then we'll wrap it up in conclusion. But having you move on maybe to the next slide after this one. Really wanted to call out an area I think we're seeing as trending. If you're not doing a nice job announcing through memo or posters, open enrollment coming up, what employees need to expect, we see a lot of pushback, and we've taken some survey data and blended that into our process to improve them or continue best practice. But one of the things that jumped out to Steve and I as we were just chatting about and prepping for this today, constant change in plan choices and plan designs, I think, is a major frustration for employees. It's hard to plan what doctors are being seen. Maybe someone's expecting to have claims in a given year or know they're going to have a procedure. So the less you can create change and the more stability you can provide to your firm and your employees over a multiple year approach will start to shape out very positively for yourselves in a culture standpoint. I would also say we do a nice job or try to infuse best practice around just the benefit materials being provided and limiting the jargon, the acronyms, and just trying to keep it simple in terms of how people actually utilize insurance. We're obviously humans too. I use insurance the same way we educate others to use it. So I wouldn't want to look at a bunch of jargon on a deck as well. So just want to call out a few of those things, pretty consistent to what we see in all different types of surveys as well, where some of the frustration points are. maybe the next slide, as we look at what blends that best practice, or what our recommendation would be. As you're an employer, you can leverage a lot of technology. You can leverage multiple mediums of how this stuff is educated to the employee or to the leadership team making decisions on benefits. But I would, highlight a couple things in areas of emphasis would be year-round support and approach. You want the new hire process to be the same as it is at open enrollment if they come on mid-year. Leveraging technology as much as possible, whether it's standalone HRIS systems or something integrated with your payroll platform. Find ways to increase employee engagement. One of the simple ways there is just through memo and education of the upcoming event, having a tight benefit guide. There's so many mediums of communication with employees today through text message and voicemail, leveraging that best practice. And then obviously the mediums of how we actually have enrollment options on site, online, on call, or call center support. Those are all best practice things we would take away into what a successful open enrollment looks like and how it's implemented. But next slide, if you, the other area that goes in tandem with just open enrollment or plan engagement throughout the year, really looking at wellness and looking at wellness from a holistic standpoint. So it's not only does someone get up in the morning and jog 5 miles, it is, are they, emotionally well, physically well, the social impact of wellness in general. And then obviously the one unknown that doesn't always seep into the workforce or is known, but is the financial wellness component. So doing education there, if it's, you got a younger staff or those that are in that first home buying phase, do they understand the process of a mortgage and whatnot? The emphasis on community and the employer today is massive. And there's so many tools to have a good employee experience. And then that employer becomes the shepherd of all things wellness as well. I would say pick a champion would be our best practice guideline. This should not be your CHRO, your head of HR, or the leader of the company. Have it be someone that takes great pride in the employee culture, morale, have them become a champion, create a committee around that. And just a general stat on there, this isn't going away. You see the adoption of companies spending more money on wellness, about 65% as well. So there's metrics you can drive out through surveying and benchmarking. Any good advisory partner can call some of that stuff out for you as well. Would be our definition of best practice. Create continued employee engagement would be another key metric as well. Next slide. So general sentiment on human capital, where we sit. A lot of different attitudes towards the career opportunities today by generation. I think focusing on the one there in Gen Z, really it's instant promotion or promotion within 12 months as we're seeing as a big trend. That puts pressure on a couple areas, in our opinion, from an employer standpoint. You want to make sure you are not only creating promotion type opportunities if warranted, but putting an employee on a track of they can define or understand where their growth will be had, and what levels of professionalism they need to attain to hit that next stage in their career. We try to do a good job at that at Cambridge, as other small businesses do. I think that's something to definitely not lose sight of in terms of the track employees are on, and making sure when they go home or they talk to their peers and a peer says, hey, I'm in line for this promotion in 6 months. If you have an employee who can articulate whether that's on the table for them or not, I think we are in jeopardy of losing them to a competitor who's maybe laid that out a little bit better. So focusing on best practice there, and then not losing sight of the baby boomer generation, for lack of a better phrase, as detailed by this slide. But there's a lot of strategy education that continues to be in the workforce and plans to be in the workforce past retirement. I think there's tremendous opportunity to leverage some of that skill set, talent, and mentorship in that generation as well too. So in a better opportunity now than ever to continue leveraging that. Next slide, just, again, reasons why there's some job hopping in the workforce today. Obviously, salary and wages is a big one. Cost of living increases across the board, a lot of movement from different states to different areas, from city to out of city, a lot of lifestyle factors that put pressure on wages and salaries. If someone can earn more money for a similar job, we're seeing a trend that they're going to take that opportunity. Benefits is a big one. I think bullet point 3 ties into the last stat we were talking about of just what is the path to career advancement. And then when you look at ultimate flexibility, this bleeds into things like PTO, work-life balance, all of that stuff in terms of the flexible nature of a job you have in and out of the office environment. Over COVID obviously forced a lot of us to go virtual. we've kept that as a best practice, adopted that as a flexible standpoint. We've gone almost to a range of unlimited PTO days in structure, assuming we can hit client engagement deadlines, or a rotational vacation schedule where we try to approve all days that are asked for, given a collaborative environment of, let's look at who wants what days off and how can we improve as many as possible, has been our style to adopt some flexibility while still maintaining a small business as well. When you look at cost containment and trends and what we think is best practice, it comes back to that first slide of where is employee pain today, and it's open enrollment or lack of education, jargon. Really having a complete year plan is the best practice. Adopting multiple platforms to drive cost savings as well. Defining going into a given year what your business goals are, what your human capital strategy is. That's going to help any consultant, because then we can drop down on platforms to help accomplish that, or a financial program if it's an insurance mechanism to help source some of that stuff. There's both the product blend and then the actual cultural blend as well. And multi-year planning around transparency, design, and education, those are all best practices. You develop that multiple year approach that just mitigates the need to switch plans every year just based on pricing or trying to find the next best thing. Some things we're seeing as trending and infusing as best practice and things to be on the lookout for is, how can you buy insurance in particular in aggregation? So if you're a small business with 50, 60 employees, how do you buy with the scale of 325,000 employees, which has a lot of leverage in the market? That's the difference of buying a small business is buying the size of a company like Apple. We've done some great things to put companies on a platform to buy together with other distribution partners as well. I think the one common theme is we have a number of employers going in the same direction, all trying to mitigate claims, infusing wellness components into their organizations, without everyone moving in the same direction, having the same common goals. Regardless of platform, you're not going to outpace claims or the financial impact of that. Everything will come down. So it has to be collaborative, both in nature of everyone going the same direction, and you have to have some size and scale, in my opinion, to have insurance market leverage. Just the integration, a complete approach to cost containment. So you'll see different things here. I won't read every slide, but it's everything from pharmacy to plan design to third-party wellness vendors, mental health apps, really having a full picture and adopting that to your company. So you have multiple levers to pull within cost containment and the approach to healthcare in general. I think if you're trying to do everything silo or only one of these 5 things, you'll have some level of success. It won't be as detailed as you can if you literally have a placemat and a process to follow that bleeds the best practice. And that'd be our guidance in terms of what we want to advise employers to look at, is really follow a process that's been proven to yield results versus, throwing a dart at the board, hoping that it works. And then again, just a recommended process as you look at, we don't want to compress this to the last 30, 45 days of the year. I think that's unfair both to an employer or the employee who's going to be handed that open enrollment that feels rushed. Extend it out full year, meet multiple times per year. Every meeting is going to take on its own design and level of emphasis on a particular goal of that meeting. Early in the year, it's going to be reflective to the prior year and some things we accomplished in an open enrollment. As you move throughout the year, it's going to become much more strategic, much more financial, commentating on what we think the projected renewals will be. And then you get to an open enrollment. And if you follow this process, and in our mind, it's the best practice in a way it should be approached. Long gone are the days where you can do all this stuff in 30 days and think you're going to pull off a nice experience for either yourself internally or for your employees as well. Then just a whole host of things, trending. I think there's multiple ways to look at cost containment, multiple platforms today. Few of them here we see as really trending if you're to rank them. Obviously, self-funding and captives, that buying style is really increasing from years prior. Those that can self-fund traditionally are trying to or looking at those strategies. The PEO market, which stands for professional employer organization, in the small business environment, that is absolutely trended, especially if you're a high growth, venture funded or growth equity type funded employer. You probably don't want to spend resources on bringing in things under one roof, or if you can at third party at best practice. That's where we see PEOs having a lot of traction. That's typically defined by buying in a box, essentially. So you get your payroll, HR, benefits, some fringe benefits brought in on one platform. People feel all different ways about that. We got on that. The ICRAs and QSARAs are another prevalent feature for small business, simply defined as a platform that you define a contribution, the employee actually picks their individual plan. We're seeing that trend both in small group and then therefore in those states that have a robust individual healthcare market as well, because ultimately that's what you're sending your employee into. Seeing a lot of action in different 1099 programs, or maybe for employees who don't meet the threshold of how your healthcare is defined. There's a lot of opportunities from a platform standpoint to offer benefits to those, especially in real estate, where you may have some key performers you're looking to retain and historically haven't been able to offer them benefits on a 1099. That's an area we've been really active in, and then you get into the gig and seasonal worker. That's a big deal as well. Pharmacy and solving for high cost there. Just speaking to a partner of ours prior to this call, historically, probably 10% of the cost was driven by pharmacy. Now we're upwards of 20 to 25% of a cost being driven by pharmacy, especially specialty drug. So having programs there to absorb some of that cost impact or better manage that cost and overall plan, again, creates that environment of a multi-year approach versus hopping from one plan to the next or carrier to carrier, is a key for us. Voluntary benefits in general. We have a slide upcoming on some of those things. We're seeing trend in there, but I would say companies that can offer a broad array of benefits without having to straddle themselves with some kind of contribution number has been a big uptick as well too. Maybe I can help. Yeah. So as you look at the top benefits here and some of the things we're seeing trending on the voluntary side, and then I think this also bleeds into diversity, equity, and inclusion, and making sure you have an inclusive benefit program as well. Just, are you doing things across the board for all employees, not just the top quartile, but are you hitting the mid quartile, lower quartile, for lack of a better analogy, employee, that you have a broad offering that speaks to them, right? Everyone has different needs. We've done things from a wellness standpoint, bringing in family law attorneys, because inevitably people on your staff may be going through a divorce. It is a tough event, both emotionally, internally, and externally. If we can provide some resources, third party or best practice, just on what to expect, things to navigate through, we've done that both on a financial advisory capacity or in a matrimonial lawyer platform as well. Infusing that with mental health, I think it ties together. And obviously we have pet insurance, we have student loan is a big one. Just the cost of folks with benefits to colleges and repayment programs is huge. Lifestyle spending accounts are a new feature, but that basically allows you to set up something similar to an HSA or an HRA as an account to fund the lifestyle type programs, whether that be gym, hobbies, maybe it's infusing, paying for someone to clean someone's house because it's a single working parent, and just making the lifestyle element a little bit easier. The unlimited PTO for sure, the home auto and umbrella as well. And there's a few others there, obviously on 401k ties in more to the financial wellness component, but that rounds out a lot of the things we're seeing. And I would say overall themes are containing cost, diversity, equity, inclusion is a big one as well, and helping employees where we can with a mental health standpoint. If you can blend voluntary benefits to some of that stuff, I think you're quickly becoming best of class as an employer. That rounds out the majority of what I wanted to cover and talk to today. Open it up for any questions.
So just a reminder, we would welcome all questions in the Q&A window at this time. We'll answer all the questions through Zoom. The ones that have come in so far, Shaun, so it sounds like there is some interest in this trend of benefit stability and doing what you can to prevent plan churn, which I think you referenced earlier in your discussion. Can you talk a little bit about what you see in regards to how that's affecting employees' perception of their compensation and overall package, and the risks that are associated with churning that to get year-over-year cost savings frequently?
Yeah, I think it's twofold, right? Have you looked at seeing, if you're incumbent carrier, what is the renewal activity there from a standpoint of an employee, and them looking at take-home pay? Is there a process in place today to call out an employee benefit statement, which shows not only the cost of medical, how that ties into salary and whatnot, bonuses, any fringe benefit? I think if we can educate the employee on what they're actually making, it makes the second conversation of what plan you're on and any changes that need to be made there a little bit easier. And then it's just, again, setting expectation. If a company is getting guidance that, hey, you're running at a temperature this year where we have to look at making a move or making some plan design changes, addressing that earlier than in an employee memo at open enrollment. Oh, by the way, your benefit costs are increasing 30%. Good luck. The latter is not best practice. So the more you can get out ahead of this stuff, the buying programs we mentioned here today, you'll hear continued trend on within captives or PEOs. Those in theory have been put together to allow companies to buy at scale, which typically limits ongoing volatility. So we've seen that can take a lot of the anxiety out of plan selection, because at least folks know, hey, we may be making a network change, but our insurance plan designs are generally similar. We've done a disruption analysis. We know going from Cigna to Aetna, or you name the carrier, is about 95, 96% overlap. I think if you don't do that, you just make a move and you don't realize you just took doctors away from someone that they've perennially been seeing, that becomes a real challenge as well.
Yeah.
And you run the risk of just a frustration or someone going to another competitor because they, in theory, have a better benefits program.
Got it. No, that makes sense. And I mean, one of the things that you and I have dealt with recently are smaller employers, like under a couple of hundred employees, right?
Yeah.
That have abnormal claims activity in a given year on their plan. And it creates a lot of uncertainty when the renewal comes in the following year.
Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about how long-term planning can hedge against, those events being very, very disruptive to your plan?
Yeah. In transparency, hitting that question head on, there may be a scenario where you have to move in a couple of years in a row because there is that alternative that you can't look past, right? And that's just good buying. But if it's backed by education and you know where you land, I think Steve and I have chatted recently, there's a lot of these different self-funded type programs where you want to make sure you know how that plan language is written and what claims are included or excluded, because that could be significant plan language that has a liability to the employer. When you look at a plan design going multiple years and how to navigate that, that's just staying in touch with it, of being monthly engaged on what claims are coming out, anything that's larger of nature, and having that conversation both with the employer, but the incumbent carrier as well. Because some of these insurance companies realize that if they maintain that risk for 2 or 3 years, at some point it will change and shift back to positive. So maybe they'll give a couple renewals that are, call it, below where they should be, because they want to retain that and know at some point it'll change. No company does themselves a service in the market when they hop each year and go from carrier to carrier to carrier. Believe me, that historical data is tracked by the carrier, and it does impact certain renewals that are provided as well. I would also say there is the element of quote unquote a no shop offer and then a full due diligence offer. We straddle both professionally, knowing that if we take a no shop bid, continue our due diligence, we may have to go back to that incumbent carrier and say, although we have no shop, we still did professional due diligence. Here's where things are lying. That employer is leaving. We handle that on our end. Obviously don't want to do that multiple times. We'll never get the no shop, but that's just prudent consulting as well. We're not going to take a no shop and not go to any other viable options that would leave dollars on the table unprofessionally for an employer. But does that help, Steve, a little bit?
Oh yeah, no, absolutely. Absolutely. And I think we got time for one more question, Shaun. So PEOs, a lot of our client base is on PEOs. It seems like the easy thing to do administratively in a lot of cases. And, as we've seen for some companies, it's exactly the right place to be. When should companies start evaluating whether the PEO is the right solution for them as they go forward?
Yeah, I think plugging into a PEO or unplugging, there's diligence on either side, right? So you'll get a lot of consultants, in my opinion, as I speak to peers, they're very scared of the PEO equation. We're very supportive of it and have a whole consulting practice around bringing or unplugging companies onto a PEO. So some metrics you'll look at is, have you shopped what the actual medical plan costs are? Can you outperform that with carve outs? Are you leveraging the platform, right? So there's some folks that I would say, yes, the medical insurance is great to have. It's been at a good cost, but they're really on the PEO because it was a great engagement platform. They like the payroll. They like all the other nuances of that. So it's just making sure you have a full checklist, understanding why you're on a PEO, what you're looking to attract. I would say if you're under 20 employees, well-funded, and are projected huge growth rates, a PEO could make a lot of sense for you, just given that the runway to staff the back office appropriately with HR and finance folks, you're never going to keep up with. And that's why Steve obviously going to work with you in tandem of the PEO and different things. There's different ways to bespoke that. But the average size company on a PEO today, outside of maybe the New York City area, is about 20 lives. So the one metric is just how big as an organization are you? Are there ways you can procure large group pricing? Can you go self-funded? Can you go level funded? What is the medical cost? I would say most folks we speak with are on the platform of PEO simply for the delta of savings in medical versus actually loving the actual platform. So if you can find medical savings and then wrap that around with a platform that's provided by any number of payroll entities or standalone HRS, we're finding you can outperform the PEO pricing in a lot of ways. Or you can leverage your current PEO to other PEOs as well. There's 800 PEOs in the country. So we do a lot of PEO consulting and side-by-side analysis of you're on one platform, you like the PEO concept. Maybe we just need to take you to a different PEO.
All right. Well, Shaun, I think that'll do it for today. Thanks a lot for joining us.
Awesome. Thanks for having me, Steve. I appreciate it. Thanks, everyone.
Interesting niche topic that I think is really important to a lot of the finance leaders and business leaders that join us for these. And I certainly always enjoy the discussions with Shaun and learning about some of these more trendy and innovative strategies. So really appreciate Shaun for you joining us today. His contact information was just up on the screen for a little while, and you can also get it on the deck that will be on our C-Suite Snacks Hub website. Today's Snack Basket winner, congratulations to Josh Sarrett from ALC Environmental. Josh, somebody from our marketing team will reach out for shipping information. And finally, once again, I'd like to thank everybody here for joining us today. Please watch your email for upcoming invites. Some of the upcoming sessions are going to focus on financial planning for 2022, including tools and processes for budgeting, forecasting, analytics, and holistic financial planning. As well as some other topics as we count down to 2022 that we think are going to be big topics next year. So with that, I wish you all to have a great rest of your week. Enjoy this beautiful fall weekend we have coming up, and I look forward to seeing you on our next session very soon.